The podcast you're about to listen to may contain random lines from musical theater, terrible attempts at regional accents, and a sincere discussion about mental health. You have been warned. Are you ready to start singing with your feet? Formidable! Allez, c'est parti! Non, nous ne sommes pas fous, nous ne sommes pas ivres, nous sommes juste dans la joie. Une joie profonde, nos cœurs elle inonde. Cette joie, elle vient du ciel. Non, nous ne sommes pas fous.
Welcome to Sing With Your Feet. My name is Lily Fields, and I'm going to be your fairy godmother for the next half hour or so. Fairy godmothers are good for a lot of things, aren't they? I used to wish I could have one growing up. Fairy godmothers are easier to take advice from than our own mothers, a fact which, seeing as how I only have little boys, is an equation I mercifully will never have to solve. Fairy godmothers aren't emotionally involved in our lives, which makes them easier to listen to. As a fairy godmother, I have had the honor of doing all kinds of things with Cinderellas. Helping them pack up boxes as they get ready to move. I've helped Cinderellas declutter their kitchens and empty out their pantries. I've helped Cinderellas clean out their closets and been a listening ear as they remember the circumstances of how an item came to live with them, and been a witness as they said goodbye and thank you to that item. I view these moments spent as a fairy godmother as a privilege, helping people move into the next phase of their lives. I'm going to say something that you probably know is true, but is also rather difficult to apply to your own life. Having too much stuff, whether it's kitchen gadgets or sheet music or handbags, having too much stuff keeps us stuck in the phase of life that we currently are in. If we want to experience progress and move into a new phase of our life, we have to make room in our hearts and in our lives for that progress. I firmly believe that a good decluttering is a dynamite way to break through into a new season of our life. That is what I want to help you do. Change doesn't have to come in the form of a transoceanic move, although it might. Change doesn't have to come to downsizing from a 3-bedroom home to a 1-bedroom apartment, but it could. The progress I want to help you make is for you to make room in your life for the person you want to be, the person that you are in your ideal life. Now, on that note, I want to just brag for a second about a few of my favorite Cinderellas who are out there in Wonderland doing their closet inventories and doing really heavy lifting of freeing themselves of the stuff that is taking up space in their hearts. One of them has even hired an estate sales service to come and look at her extensive collection of vintage clothes and accessories to help her think through what to do with it all. Her thought process is one that I admire. She has an eye for beautiful things, and she's built this collection over years and years. She knows that these objects have value and that someone might love them as much as she does. She doesn't want to just give them away to someone who won't value them. This is an admirable extra step she's taking that will help ease the discomfort of seeing those items leave her home. Thinking through why we have kept a sentimental item can be a long process or a short one, and it often can dredge up all kinds of history that we may have forgotten about. But that dredging up process can also help us bring closure. And once we have closure, we can discard or give away or repurpose an item much more freely. So let's talk about our inventory. Last week on the podcast, we talked about how there are things in our closet that look like clothes, but are in fact no longer clothes. We talked about the things hanging in your closet or in your drawers that you absolutely never wear because they have functionally become souvenirs or antiques, objects that you keep around for another purpose than to actually wear them. Once we identified these items in our closet that don't actually serve the function of being clothes, we can feel free to, well, they might continue to live in our closet, not look at them as part of our active wardrobe. So these things that we absolutely never wear, we don't have to include them on our closet inventory because they are not, for all intents and purposes, clothes. There are clothes in your closet that serve a purpose of being a costume. They are what you wear for a role in your life, which may not be your everyday life either. For me, this is a little section of evening gowns and performance clothes and sparkly shoes, which I may get around to wearing once a year, if that. These, likewise, I'm not going to include them in the first edition of my closet inventory. It's not time to decide what to do with those, because they're for occasions that don't come around very often. Your homework for the last 2 weeks has been to keep track of what you are actually wearing from your closet. And as you pull out something that isn't on your inventory list yet, to note where it came from, when you acquired it, how much it cost, what you like about it, and what you don't like about it. I started over from January 1st in a new column just to see what I am actually wearing now in 2023. So far, I have one item of clothing that I have worn every single day, and that is a wool bed jacket that I wear every night to bed to read. The next most worn items in my inventory are my wool and cashmere lace t-shirt, of course, and then one of 2 pairs of wool tights and my boots. Everything else cycles in and out, but those are the foundation of what I wear most days. Knowing this about myself has already helped me avoid a very bad decision I nearly made yesterday when I saw a pair of very pretty magenta pink jeans on sale for €40, originally priced at €120. Sure, they were pretty, but the chances that I would actually wear them 40 times in the next year to get them to what I consider an acceptable cost per wear, which is, for me, €1 per wear, is slim to none. I like to wear dresses with wool tights under them. I will never wear pretty magenta jeans enough to have them be an investment that pays off. It doesn't matter if the gorgeous jeans were a really, really great deal, which they were, but just because something is a great deal doesn't mean that it needs to end up in my closet. Knowledge, my friends, is power. Knowing what is the foundation of your wardrobe helps you make better decisions about what comes into your home, and this will lead to less regret about the stuff hanging in your closet that you don't wear very often. So Heartspace and Headspace. I have developed a kind of vocabulary for the things that use up our 3 resources. Those 3 resources we all have been given to pursue life with. Do you remember what they are? Our time, our talent, and our treasure. The vocabulary I've invented is based on that little Bible verse that says, where our treasure is, our heart will be too. So when we invest in our money in anything, whether it's a new pair of shoes, or a piano, or a boat, or a car, or a piece of jewelry, or magenta jeans, or a bouquet of roses, that item, by definition, holds a value of some kind. Therefore, if we choose to believe that little Bible verse, then a little piece of our heart is reserved for caring about what happens to that item. Where our treasure is, our heart will be too. Not all of our heart, of course, just a little piece of it, a piece proportionate to the value of the item. Of course, there is depreciation when it comes to the heart space of an object. A car which is brand new today, which we carefully vacuum once a week and take to the detailer once a month, can, in 10 years from now, be an afterthought rotting out in our garage. Nevertheless, until that car is out of our possession, it will continue to take up space in our hearts. A new sweater, it loses its luster after a few wears. The excitement of a new phone might last a few weeks. While there is depreciation, the sweater or the phone will still occupy space in our hearts. So this is where I want to introduce my little vocabulary words, one real and one made up. That's headspace and heartspace. My friends over at the Collins Dictionary define headspace as someone's mental state. A second definition is the ability to think clearly. I don't know about you, but pretty much any time I can think clearly, it feels like magic. My heart space, though, is a word I'm pretty sure that I made up. Although my sister Poppy tells me that she read a book in which the term is used to represent something different than what I like to call it. So for what our purposes are, let's echo Collins' definition, and I would say that heart space is someone's emotional state. It also can be defined as the ability to feel clearly and truthfully. The ability to feel clearly without second-guessing ourselves and without ambivalence towards our life decisions doesn't just feel like magic. It is magic. Things take up space, and not just in our homes. They take up space in our hearts. Decision making for some of us requires more thought than we have the headspace for at any given moment. What we wear is a decision that impacts our heart space as well. So, if where our treasure is, our hearts will be too, then our decision-making progress can be facilitated by removing some of the quote-unquote treasure, which on any given day we might be willing to admit is a lot of quote-unquote junk from our lives. Now, just to reassure you, I am not yet going to ask you to eliminate anything from your closet, but I want you to start thinking about it. Start thinking about what items in your closet you would absolutely never miss if your washing machine opened up and swallowed them. In my ideal life, I am a person who. Do you remember that prompt? It's what got us going down this road to talking about our closets in the first place. That prompt is what we have been using to help us define our ideal life, and most importantly, the kind of person we want to be in our ideal life. There are many different aspects of the ideal life. In my schema, I have 19 different themes that overlap in different ways and that provide motivation. They provide course correction and help in decision making. Episodes 15 to 34 of the podcast go into depth on these different themes, and they are all available for you to listen to on your podcast player. One aspect I haven't delved into yet is the idea of the recursive shapes of our lives. A recursive shape, in case you aren't a complete geek like I am, is a kind of shape, something like a fractal, in which the smallest iteration of something resembles the largest, like the way that under a microscope, a tiny stone can look like a mountain range. In our lives, we can see this in both good ways and bad. Sometimes, on the macro level, we find ourselves in the same relationship problems or the same problems at work, no matter how many times we change partners or jobs. Or we may feel like we have wasted our lives on a macro level, and if we were to look at how we spend our individual days, they are each a tiny little individual example of how we wasted our time. These are the bad examples, but there are ways out of them. They take a lot of determination, and oftentimes they take therapy, which you should really get if you find yourself stuck in the same problems time and time again. Establishing a list, a long list of who we are in our ideal life helps us bring to the surface the overall recursive shapes we want to see in our lives, both on the grand scale and on the tiny scale. These shapes can be gleaned from studying the ideal life statements that you wrote. Words that appear over and over again to describe what we want from our lives across many different categories and themes can be the first hints of the recursive shapes we want to see. As an example, the words that popped up for me over and over in my ideal life statements were joy, progress, contentment, consistency, discernment, and wisdom. These are words that motivate me to do what I do. And whenever I am out of alignment with one of these overarching ideas, I often find that I'm floundering. If I start getting covetous, for example, and want everything I see, then I know that I am out of sync with my goal of contentment. If I stop feeling joy, then I need to take a look at what I am doing that is out of whack with progress or consistency or wisdom. These things are intrinsically linked in my life, and believe it or not, these things show up in my closet too. Once I was able to examine my relationship to my clothes, like we talked about last week, determining what items are sentimental items, more akin to souvenirs and actually items I would wear, and which are costumes that I wear for the different roles I play in my life, I could see that there was incredible consistency to who I am and what I wear. Let's take joy, for example. I am someone who is rather unabashedly joyful. This aspect of my personality manifests in what I wear. I wear bright colors and flashy colors. The role I play in my life that sees me interacting with the people I love often sees me turning to this costume that looks joyful. This also reflects my value of consistency, being the same on the inside as I am on the outside. When it comes to contentment, my heart desires to be satisfied with what I own. This is why I'm so passionate about making my own clothes or doing alterations and repairs to the items that I love. My wardrobe is a reflection of how I want to be in my ideal life. As you look through your ideal life statements, you might see words like safety or success. You might see honesty or humor. Whatever those words are that float to the top, the words that appear the most often, those are the ones that I want you to think about in relationship to your closet.
Elle me fait bondir et vibrer, crier. Elle me donne envie de chanter, danser. Elle pousse à agir, donner, partager. Et tout simplement de sourire, aimer.
When it comes to dressing for the life that you want, it's not a question of getting rid of everything that you own and starting over, although that has been at various points in my life a kind of fantasy. When I have been unhappy with the course of my life, notably when I was in a postpartum depression and wanted to be as far away as possible from every single decision I had ever made in my entire life, I dreamed of starting over as someone with a completely different style and a different wardrobe and a different body. But when it came right down to it, the life I wanted was already in my closet. It was just crowded out and suffocated by a lot of things that weren't what I wanted for my life. Here's an example. A friend gave me a little leopard wrap top in a really slinky material. It was, how do I say this? It screamed, "I'm sexy, look at me." I had been holding onto that top for years, and yet on the few occasions that I actually tried to wear it, I found myself staring at my own grandma, Gigi, in the mirror. It was a genuinely awful and strange experience. The top looked cute. It looked sexy. But I have come to the conclusion that in my life, I am not someone who wants to be seen as sexy. It isn't part of what I want for my life. I'd rather be joyful. I'd rather be wise and discerning. I do not want to be like my grandmother, whose most earnest desire was to be the most beautiful woman in the room. When I was able to articulate what it was that I didn't like about the top, that is, that it made me think of my grandmother and all the things that I thought about her, it became infinitely easier to part with that item. Oddly enough, still on the animal print theme here, I have a dress which I purchased at the beginning of 2022, which is a zebra chiffon wrap dress. Zebra, to me, is the visual representation of creativity. This is a long story, which I will surely tell you about in another episode, but this dress is one that I stalked during my year without shopping. That dress, to me, it represents wisdom and determination. I waited a long time to own that dress, and once I did, it gave me a lot of joy. It is also consistent with who I am, that is, a creative person. That's how I want to be seen in my life. That's how I want to see myself. That's who I want to be in my ideal life. And when I wear that dress, I am living out who I want to be in my ideal life on multiple levels. I love this dress because of what it says about me. Na, Littlefields, you are saying to yourself, this is all well and good, but not everything is a chiffon zebra wrap dress. That's absolutely true. And I mean, there are very boring items in our closets too. The black t-shirts, the underwear, the socks, the jeans. But I would maintain that even these items have the potential to either suffocate our ideal life or give it space to exist and to breathe. During the year when I made the commitment to buy no clothes, this meant nothing. No socks, no tank tops, no underwear, no jeans, no t-shirts. You would be surprised how much you learn about what you like and what you don't like when faced with the knowledge that you won't be able to replace anything for an entire year. For example, at the time of my challenge, I owned approximately, I'm not proud of this, 6 black tank tops, each one in a different material with a different cut. Do you know how many of those black tank tops I actually regularly wore? Exactly 2. And of those 2, one of them is very, very old and has been mended at least 4 times. Now, Littlefields, why in the world would you bother mending a black tank top when you have 4 other ones that are in perfect condition? Because I like that one. I like the way it fits. I like the material. I like the way the straps lay. I like that one. And because I like that one, and I cannot seem to find one exactly like it, I will wear and rewear and fix that one until it cannot be worn anymore. So what does that mean I'm supposed to do with those 3 other tank tops that I absolutely never wore during that year? Keep them out of fear for the day that finally my favorite one kicks the bucket? Or could I take the risk of decluttering them because I don't and might never actually like them? Examining what I don't like about the ones that I never wear is part of the process. One of the tanks is too short. One of them has lace that always has been oddly stretched out. And another one is too tight. Keeping them around, even though I know I will never wear them, is a waste of space. Both physical space and space in my heart and in my head. A few weeks ago, I asked you to think about why you were wearing exactly the clothing you were wearing at that moment. And I'm going to ask you to do it again right now. Why are you wearing what you're wearing? As I record right now, I am wearing, yes, no surprise here, wool tights and my favorite long sleeve t-shirt under a gray jersey wrap dress with a vintage baby blue sweater. I am also wearing a green knitted skirt that I finished yesterday during the day and just sewed elastic into the waist because I made it and because I love it and because I am so proud of it. Now, I am wearing this right now because I chose these things last night before I went to bed. I chose them because I knew exactly what foundational elements I wear almost every single day and that they happened to be clean and drying on the line. And this dress, it has pockets, thereby making it a unicorn among amazing dresses. This sweater is because I love this sweater for the color and the pretty sleeves, and I haven't yet worn it this year, which is really too bad. I chose all of these things because they match the life I want to live. Not fussy, but a little bit fancy. And hey, guess what? I made it. The most important part of that, though, is the part in which I told you I am wearing this because I decided last night that this is what I was going to wear today. The act of deciding the night before what I'm going to wear the next day is called mise en place. We have talked about mise en place in previous episodes as a way to simplify our lives, getting out the things we need in order to be more efficient when the time comes. It also makes us more likely to actually do the things once we have the time because all the elements are out and within reach. We can just get down to business. Because I chose what I was going to wear this morning last night, I had a little bit of distance emotionally in order to decide what kind of life I wanted to live today. What I chose last night represented what I thought I could wear in order to live my ideal life today. My decision was not impacted by urgency. I was not trying to get myself and my children ready to get out of the door this morning when I would have been probably sorely tempted to put a coat over my pajamas thinking nobody would have noticed. My ideal life is one that is not lived in urgency. Making wardrobe decisions when I am not under the gun also lets me choose from a greater variety of things in my closet that I might have forgotten about. I, for example, love this light blue sweater, but I had kind of forgotten about it until last night. Not to mention that I got to put a little 1 next to it on my inventory since this was the first time I wore it this year. I felt like I was making good decisions. Decisions that lined up with who I want to be and the life I want to live. When I got dressed this morning, I felt confident and relaxed. As I think about what I'm saying, I know this sounds so silly and insignificant, but I insist on the fact that if we can, even in something as insignificant as our wardrobes, find ourselves living out tiny little fractals of our ideal life, we are already on the path for greater, more meaningful progress in our lives. What we wear speaks to our feelings about our body, about our career, about our relationship status, all things that are decidedly linked to our emotional well-being and to our mental health. This week, I want you to think about how you decide what to wear. The first step, and this is the only homework you're going to have this week besides containing your closet inventory, so make sure you do this. Before you go to bed tonight, take a few minutes when things are calm and pick out what you are going to wear tomorrow and put it in the space where you will be getting dressed. So this is the segment in the podcast where I catch you up on what I've been doing with my New Year's resolution. I call this section the Golden Rule Rules. I shared this little thought on my blog last week, but I'm going to share it here for good measure. My New Year's resolution is to live out the golden rule as much as possible this year. So, doing for others what I would want done for me. Well, last week, I had a little bit of paralysis on this subject in a few areas of my life. I could not, for the life of me, figure out what I would want done for me in a similar situation. And I actually ended up berating myself. I was like, why don't you know what you would want? And then I had a kind of epiphany. Maybe this paralysis was my heart telling me that in a similar situation, I wouldn't want anyone to do anything for me. Maybe the problem was that I thought I always needed to be doing something. A friend who can love me without love bombing me is sometimes exactly the kind of friend I need. And sometimes someone who knows how to keep their distance and leaves the ball in my court, sometimes that's the kind of friend I need. And maybe the lack of doing anything is what's showing me that they love me. So learning that it was okay to choose to not do anything, if nothing is what I would want done for me, was my big, giant golden rule takeaway this week. So if you are feeling pushed to action this week, that you should be doing something, really consider, what would I want done for me? And if what you want done for you is absolutely nothing, then just think some really, really nice thoughts for that friend and leave the ball in their court. All right, Cinderella, I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. I am so honored that you took time out of your day, your precious treasure of your time, to spend time with me. I'd love to hear what comes up for you as you think about your closet. You can reach me on Instagram at singwithyourfeet or by email, lily@singwithyourfeet.com. That's Lily, Lily. Be great this week, Cinderella. I believe in you. And if you have any closet therapy or inventory questions, just drop me a line. I will do what I can to help you think through your closet. Here's a great big thank you to 7 Productions here in Mulhouse, France for the use of the song La Joie as the intro and outro of the show, to Matt Kugler, who you can find on social media as Matt-K, who sang it, and to Claude Ekwe, who wrote it. This is your fairy godmother signing off. Just remember, it's never too late to start singing with your feet.